What's up, RT?
Nick,
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm excited to be back in the podcast studio again.
Man, I love this. I love the new studio, too.
It is nice. A lot more room.
Dude, the air conditioning in here is awesome.
Yeah.
You know.
I've still been thinking about last week's episode, everything you talked about. So,
Really?
Yeah.
You liked it?
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had Father's Day, and you said, do some reflection on Father's Day.
Yeah. Did you do any of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I listen. So I usually listen. Do you listen to the podcast?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
listen to
I
everyone.
forget what we talk about.
Sometimes I do that, too.
So sometimes I listen to it, and I'll laugh at stuff like, man, I'm a funny guy.
Right.
And then...
Right.
And then there's things like, that's really good. I can't believe Nick thought of that. But
it's funny. My wife listens to them all, too.
Yeah.
And she gives me feedback, positive and negative, which I think is good.
That's good.
Yeah. Anyway, you have a good Father's Day?
Yeah, it was good.
Good. All
It
right.
was good. So
Awesome.
today, you text me yesterday,
Yeah.
a couple days ago, something, and said, a couple weeks ago I did 2 sermons in one. At
You
church.
did, yeah. So you did 2 on a Sunday morning, which was odd because you did a 15-minute one. It was really short, and then the singers came back up, sung again, and then you did like a 30-minute one after that. And it's like, I think you tricked us all.
I did.
to sitting in for 2 sermons, but it's okay. That's what you got to do.
Well, and you want me to talk more about the first one. It's like, hey, you should really talk about that on the podcast.
Man, I thought about it, and it was good. It was a good story, good backstory. Speaking of, where's your rocking chair?
I got to get it back in here.
Oh, okay.
So here's the story for you
Yeah.
guys. So part of it was like personal for our church because our church, we're doing some big things, like kicking off this new year. Like for us, like what we're going to do, not a new year, but you know what I'm saying. So I sat in my office on a Sunday morning early, and I was looking over there. I have this rocking chair in my office. It's been sitting here for a couple weeks now.
I helped your grandpa carry that in to
I didn't
your
know
office.
that.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, I was going on vacation. I have a distant cousin. It'd be like a second cousin, I think.
Okay.
Sends me a message like, hey, I have a rocking chair, and it belonged to your great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
And he's like, I want to keep it in the family. He's like, would you take it?
Yeah.
I was like, absolutely.
I mean, if it's nice.
Yeah.
It's a piece of crap. I don't want it.
I'd have probably taken it either way.
Really? Okay, cool.
So I didn't know what it looked like. He
Yeah.
dropped it off here when he's coming. He's from out of state. When he came through Indiana, he dropped it off.
Cool.
So anyways, this belonged to Oliver Stringer.
Okay.
So there was Oliver, then his son was Lofty.
Wait. Lofty?
Lofty.
Okay.
Yep. His son was Clyde.
Hold on just a second. Stop. Sorry.
Okay.
Aren't you a third?
So Oliver's dad was
No,
Richard
not
Thomas.
like a third the size, but
Yeah.
like a third.
What's wrong? Oliver's dad was Richard Thomas II.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right. So then there's Oliver.
Okay.
Then there's Lofty.
Yeah, I like Lofty. That's a cool name.
Then there's Clyde.
Yeah.
Then there's Harvey, who is my dad.
Yeah, he's nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's Richard Thomas Stringer III, which is me,
Right.
RT.
Yeah.
So it skipped a few generations.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It still works out.
So I started the sermon with saying this.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I have this rocking chair here. And I gave this backstory. This is Oliver Stringer's rocking chair.
Yeah.
I never met Oliver, like in my life. I've never met him. Of course, rocking chairs from the 1800s.
Right.
But he has influence on me. Like,
Now, hold on. You said something way better.
did I?
Yeah. I'm going to say it.
All right, let's hear
You
it.
said, I got this rocking chair from Oliver Stringer. Glad I didn't get that name. And then Oliver has Lofty. Glad I didn't get that name either. And then Lofty has Clyde. Glad I didn't get that name. And then Clyde has... I always forget your dad's
Harvey.
name. Harvey, yeah. Why? I don't know why I always forget your dad's name. Harvey. Glad I didn't get that name, but I did get Richard.
Yeah. I know. Sometimes when you're speaking, like, I don't know if you run this, but especially when I'm on stage, like, I'll say
when I
things.
speak to the masses, when I'm speaking to 300 people, I usually say different things.
I instantly regret it sometimes, like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. I usually try to look at Karen's face. That's my barometer to know how much I messed up.
I get that.
So-
I do the same thing.
Where was I going? Oh, so I was saying to Oliver.
Yeah.
I was like, the guy has influence on my life.
Right.
So one reason I'm
Kind of indirect.
indirect. So I told him, it's like, one reason I believe in really hard work is because Oliver had a farm.
Right.
Worked hard. Taught his son to work hard.
Yeah.
Taught his son to work hard. Taught his son worked hard. Who taught me to work hard.
Right.
Oliver took his son to church. Who in turn took his son to church. And through generations and generations, I find myself 4 or 5 generations later now.
Yeah.
I see the value of hard work. And I see the value of being a Christian and
Right.
living a
Going to
godly
church.
life. And that you can trace back through my lineage.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like now that you bring that up, I think about it. My great-grandparents, my great-grandpa was a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
So him and my great-grandma were obviously in church, 19 days a week. But then my grandparents weren't.
Yeah.
And it's not that they were unbelievers. It's not like they attended a church, not that I know of, not in the last 30 years. And I think that kind of, my dad's side, caused my dad to not ever go to church. Then I didn't go to church for years. And then got married to a godly woman. And then I started going to church. But it's funny how that kind of gets passed down generation to generation.
It is. And each generation can make a decision, right? So Oliver's son could have said, no, I'm going to be a lazy bum. I'm not going to love my wife. I'm not going to go to church.
Yeah, I'm not going to take care of this farm.
But he continued in that tradition.
Yeah.
And right, so this continued getting passed down to me.
Yeah.
But the other good thing is like, so I know I come from a godly lineage.
Yeah.
But even if you don't, you could, as a man,
still
you could
change
decide today's like, no, today, like I'm going to live for God. I'm going to love my wife, even if everyone in my family's been divorced. I'm going to love her. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to raise my kids in church. So you can make that decision.
Yeah, I'm just going to dare to be different. You know,
you do in your family line. You have to dare to be different.
Yeah.
But then not just what I was trying to get across Sundays, like not doing things for you, but doing those for yet to come at the church. We're saying, hey, for those who may come to our church in 50 years, we want to do some things now to get ready for them.
That's what it was. You went on the lineage of the church built in 53, right?
I did. Our church was started, Villa Baptist was started in 1953. And I gave the story that there was a guy named Clinton Hell, who's the founder of Villa. 1951, started going to a Bible study, got saved.
Yeah.
2 years later, he finds himself running to Bible study, and they plant a church.
Right.
And I kind of joked about it on Sunday because the church started in a 20 by 20 building. Yeah. And it's actually where we have our restrooms now.
Right.
So
it tells you about the sermons back then.
It does.
I'm just kidding. I didn't mean that.
But so this guy, so Clinton Hell, right? He's incredibly gifted, visionary, and sees that, no, we're going to create a church here on this corner for the people yet to come. So here we are, 70 some years later, and we're benefiting from the 19 people who took a bold step that day.
Yeah. Look at all the people in this neighborhood now that have a church to call home.
Right.
Because of the steps that were taken, what did you say, 70 years ago?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying on Sundays. Like, so most of us, or all of us, like, we don't know who those 19 people are. We may know a couple of them.
Yeah.
But because what they were willing to do and sacrifice, we are here now.
Right.
And so in your family, you may not know your great-great-great-grandkids, but you can make some decisions now, financially, spiritually, work ethics, that hopefully get passed down to them.
Yeah, so what are we teaching the next generation that's going to, hopefully continue that on to the next generations?
A lot of times I don't think we think multi-generational, right? So
I don't.
We think about ourselves.
Yeah. Maybe the next generation.
Maybe our kids.
Yeah.
Maybe grandkids.
Yeah.
But after that, we don't really think much a lot of times.
Crazy to think about.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you look back and see, for me, it's a positive lineage, but it could be you look back and be like, man, my family's always just struggled.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah, maybe we'll break that generational curse,
Yeah. So then so I had a verse to go along with it. It's 2 Corinthians 3:12.
Okay.
Which says, since we have such a hope, we are very bold.
Yeah.
So the hope being that we have the hope of the gospel. So we talked about at the end of last week's episode that Jesus loves you, died on a cross for you.
Right.
Since you have this hope, you can be very bold.
Yeah.
You can take bold steps.
You take bold steps.
So as I apply to our church, we need to take bold steps, not for us. Right. We need to take bold steps for people in 70 years from now.
Yeah, for the next 5 generations out that we're not going to know or meet.
Yeah, because it's crazy to think that there's 19 people who, when you look back in the church records, they sacrificed a lot of their money and time, and they built the church with their hands, and they stayed debt-free. All these things they sacrificed to do, and knowing that they wouldn't be the ones that benefit from it, people they wouldn't even know would benefit
exactly. From it. Yeah, they gave so much of themselves for people that they were never going to meet.
Yeah, but our mentality sometimes is so much like, what can I acquire for? What can I get for me? I need nicer things.
Yeah, what can
I
need
more
for me
free
and my
time?
Wife?
Yeah, instead of looking like, no, what can I do for the kingdom?
Yeah,
50 years from now.
How can I further this to people I'm never going to meet?
I like looking at it this way. Like when I'm in heaven, I hope I'm still making an impact here on earth.
Yeah.
So I hope there's things I do now that when I'm long in heaven, that there are people I've invested in.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is like a building that was built or a church that was planted, so that it continues reaching people long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
So. But that's where I think we go back to that verse to say, okay, we have this great hope, so we can take those bold steps to see what we can change.
Yep, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and they, what did he say? He said, I don't remember exactly how the line went, but it was basically, if I was to be killed or something, you're not taking anything away from me. In fact, you're just pushing me in the direction that I was already going in anyway. And I just, thinking about that for a minute, we can really take some bold steps because of the gospel. Yeah. Because of what's promised to us.
Yeah. The other thing on that is like, you don't have to fear man.
Right.
Or what others think. So I think that's especially for our church, but as Christians, like we don't fear and tremble before men. We fear and tremble before God.
Right. I say that to Rachel all the time. Like, I'm probably going to die before you. And, I'm not really nervous about that. More nervous for her that, she's going to have all this stuff to take care of in life.
Yeah. You know where you're going? Right.
Yeah. I'm going to be fine.
But that's that hope you have. And so because you have that hope, you can be pretty bold. You can know that I don't need to acquire a lot of things for myself down here.
Yeah.
Because when I leave this world, whether it's a year from now or 50 years from now, I'm going to leave this world. but I know where I'm going and the hope I have there.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I just find this verse super encouraging.
Yeah, it's really good.
So I think when I got done with the sermon on Sunday, I can't remember if sermon 1 or sermon 2, but one guy asked me, he's actually a listener of this podcast, and he said, the sermon today is really convicting type thing. He goes, but I think the problem that a lot of guys have is that we hear this and then we don't do anything with it.
Right.
So he goes, and he even brought up, he's like, I hear things on the podcast, or I hear a sermon at church, or I'm listening to a sermon. I get really convicted and I know I should do something. He goes, but then I don't do anything.
Yeah, it just kind of stops there.
Have you ever felt like that?
I do that, actually. Yeah, I get it.
Me too. So I want to encourage like the listeners and myself with this is like, okay, so what bold step are you going to take?
Yeah, and I think we've done this a few times where we've encouraged guys to go out and do something.
Yeah.
I think the last podcast, we just encouraged guys to who are you that other people are seeing? Who are you that your kids are seeing or that other people's kids are seeing? Or, who are we portraying ourselves to be? And just be bold about that. I mean, if you need one thing to be bold about that. And portraying yourself to be a good, godly man. Like you said, a good hard worker, a good, godly man. Anyway.
I think on this one, even asking, like, if you don't, like, I know I don't very often, like, reflecting on what kind of legacy am I leaving?
Yeah.
Like, we don't think about that much.
Right.
So when I leave this world, what's my legacy?
Yeah.
And what's that legacy? If you have children.
Were you a good husband? Were you a good father? Were you a good pastor? Were you, what were you when you're gone? What will people remember about you?
Yeah, so I'd encourage you guys, take some time, meditate on that. Yeah. Think about it. What kind of legacy? Maybe pray, ask God to kind of open your eyes and show you, hey, here's some bold steps you need to take to kind of change the legacy that you're leaving for those around. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Anything else today?
No, I think that's it. I can't wait to sit in that rocking chair.
Well, maybe you can start setting in it during the podcast.
Maybe I'll do that. I can rock back and forth and just drive producer Blake nuts.
It would. It probably squeaks. I mean, it's over 100 years old.
Oh, yeah.
We need to start like throwing these pictures up on social media of things we talk about. Like the rocking chair, you sitting there.
Yeah, let's go grab that thing and take a picture of it.
Or the grass when you were sitting when we talked last week about your nice grass.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll send you a picture of my grass.
Okay.
All right.
Really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Make sure if you haven't to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and then give us maybe a share on social media or tag a friend you think would be interested in listening to it.
Yeah. I think having our wives on few weeks ago was a really big hit. And I think we're going to have some more guests on here in the near future, aren't we?
We do. I think this summer we're going to line up a few guests. So
awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to future episodes of Tough Men of Faith.
Yep. Thanks again, guys, for listening, and we'll see you guys here soon.
See you next week.